All right, welcome back to the Spero Means Hope podcast, where we take storytelling to a whole new level by sharing amazing patient stories, interview experts in the community, and share resources for clinicians and students. So tonight we have with us Jacqueline and Alexa from Dateability. Hi y'all, how you guys doing?
Hi, we're doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for meeting with me tonight. I'm really excited about this interview.
Us too.
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Where are you guys from? What do you guys do for a living? What do you do for fun?
My name is Alexa. I am 34 years old. I live in Denver, Colorado. I've spent my time all over the country, in the Northeast, in Florida, in the mountains of Colorado, but Denver's been home for almost 10 years now. And I am a public interest attorney. I'm also the founder or co-founder and co-CEO of Dateability, which is the only dating app for disabled and chronically ill people. When I'm not working, which is I'm almost always working, but when I'm not, I like to watch a lot of TV, both good and bad reality TV. I like to hike, I like to ski, I like to go out to eat, I love coffee, typical stuff.
Yeah. And I am Alexa's younger sister, Jacqueline. I'm 30 years old and, like Alexa, live in Denver, Colorado. And I have a background in psychology, but was unable to work previously due to my chronic health conditions. And so being a CEO is my first time job. And I'm really excited that I was able to find a space in a place in the professional world where I could be my own boss and work, within the constraints and my abilities of being disabled. And then for fun, Alexa and I do pretty much everything together. So everything she
Aw.
said that she liked, I also do. I love going on walks with my dog. I love watching TV, playing the guitar, and yeah.
I love that you guys mentioned reality TV because that's also my primary hobby. When I'm not working, I'm usually watching like Love is Blind or something like
It's
that.
such a good
So,
it's escape. Watching other people have messy lives, you're like, all right,
yes,
I'm doing okay.
yes. And it's something mindless. So you don't have to
Yes.
you can pick it up, leave it off. It's awesome. I'd love to hear more about like how you guys come up with Dateability. What are some features of the app and what makes it unique?
We came up with Dateability after my horrible experiences dating as a disabled woman. So, as we mentioned, we're from Colorado, and so anytime you'd go on the dating app, either like the first question would be, "What outdoor activities do you like? What physical activity do you like?" Or they would suggest going on a date, and have that be hiking, biking, climbing, and it was really, really uncomfortable for someone who doesn't do that and because of a disability. And so I always felt like there was so much pressure to date. And, I would either have some funny answer or just try to change the subject. And it didn't really matter because in the end, I would always get rejected once I mentioned my chronic illness. And that could be right away. Sometimes there were times where I had to disclose my chronic illness. And then there were times where I would really get to know someone and a few months later, they would tell me that they're going to break up with me because it was too stressful to date me, or my chronic illness made too much of a negative impact on their life. And so this happened over and over again. And of course, with anyone, it being rejected causes really low self-esteem. And so I really struggled with my identity as a disabled person, and I felt really ashamed and embarrassed. And then back in 2021, I had to get a feeding tube for gastroparesis. And I just had reiterated to Alexa that like I just wish there was a place where I could find people like me. And she said, let's make it ourselves. And that's what we did. And I mean, I never would have expected that we would end up with Dateability being such a success, and really having such a great time doing it. But I'm really glad that the journey got us here.
I love that. Alexis, on your side, whenever Jacqueline came to you and said like, "Oh, this is such a struggle that that I deal with," was it like pretty immediate to you that like we should just create this, or like what was your thought process towards coming up with that?
I think over the years, when she was going through these experiences, I never really thought about it. But when then she was getting a feeding tube and I was panicking on how that would change our relationship. I often cook dinner and we'll give Jacqueline a cook dinner for us or like go out to brunch. And I was wondering, like, this is my sister who I love no matter what, and I'm stressed and I can't imagine what dating would be like for her. This was also at the sort of the beginning of the pandemic. It was 2021. And so I was watching this divide between these so-called like non-disabled or healthy people and who were starting to unmask, and then the other people who were still taking precautions. And I just saw this gap and this void that needed to be filled. And that's when it came to me. I think I was also like the pandemic and being a lawyer, but like really put me in problem solving mode. I was trying to take control in any way I could. And so that was, one way I found an outlet that way.
I like that. And then who came up with the name?
I did.
Jacqueline.
It was the same day that we came up with the app, and I remember, I think Alexa, maybe you went on a run or something, and I texted you and I said we don't have to use this, but like, what about Dateability? And you said, oh, I love that, and we did all the Googling search to make sure that we could use that name, and luckily we were able to. So it was very honestly easy to come up with.
What I like with the name too is that it's simple, but as soon as you read it, you get what it's about. So I think it's a very like smart and like effective name.
Oh,
That makes
thank
sense.
you.
Yeah, I tasked her with that. I was like, I'm not good at coming up with clever names. You need to think of a name that has to do with dating and disabilities and something like the community we're serving. Have at it.
Yeah. And I also love that you truly are meeting a need. Because how we even found you is that talking with the patients and then they were mentioning similar struggles. And then so my coworker went up to like look to see if there was something like that. And then that's how she found out. So it's meeting a need. Like every day we hear it. And so I love that.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And just on that note, there are some apps that purport to be dating apps for disabled people. And before we started out on this, we downloaded every single one of them. We assumed that we would have heard of one by now had it been legitimate and successful, but we wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything. And so many of them the tech is either terrible, like it just crashes immediately upon loading, or it's full of predatory users or bots. And so it was very clear, and you could never find out like who actually was running this. So like if I had an issue, I didn't know who to go to or who was behind this. And so it was really clear that there wasn't anything legitimate. I know attempts have been made a long time ago, but now, I feel like with social media, the disabled community, the chronically ill community, their voice is getting louder with the pandemic, and that now was the time that people would be more accepting of this, and they have been. We were right. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we're coming up in searches because I would hate for anyone else to download the other apps that are not good.
Yeah. Especially when you say it's like predatory people on the app, that's also like the last thing you want. So like
Right.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jacqueline, do you feel comfortable opening up about your chronic illness? You can share however much details or little details as you like, but how has it affected your life up to this point, and what are some things that you deal with?
Yeah, I became disabled when I was 14. And it started with like a lot of autoimmune issues. My first symptoms were GI issues, and I was then diagnosed with gastroparesis and dysautonomia, and then it turned into chronic pain, and I had lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and Ehlers-Danlos, and I've had over 40 surgeries all over my body, and like literally from my brain to my legs. And it's, I live with a lot of daily symptoms, but I really don't like I see them and I feel them, but it's so normal for me now that it takes a lot for me to really be like outwardly affected by it at this point. And so I live with a lot of chronic pain, chronic fatigue. I still have my feeding tube. I have trigeminal neuralgia, which causes facial pain. And so it's it can be difficult some days, but I really just try to view my body as this like just this neutral vessel, and it's just taking me every day, and things go up and down.
Yeah. Do you find that, and this can be related to the dating scene or not, but do you find that like society at large is pretty like welcoming and accepting of like different disability level, and then especially like invisible disability, like the ones that you don't really see when you look at someone? Like, do you find that people are usually pretty receptive and like are you welcoming or not?
Totally depends. I've had some, so like I have invisible disabilities, and I've had some awful experiences due to the fact that I don't look disabled. And my first experience was when I was using my disabled placard, and I was 17 or something, and someone called the cops on me, and the cops showed up to my car and made me,
Wow.
prove myself, uh, my disability. It was wild, and that's happened a few
Wow.
times, and sometimes it comes from disabled people themselves. They'll be if we pull into a parking spot and someone else gets out of their car and they say like, don't be using your grandma's placard. And so there's even a divide among the disability community. um, and then there are times where I definitely see it as a privilege, and I can hide it, and I can pass as a non-disabled person, and that's so I can try to get like all of that benefit. But I think that it really depends what environment you're going into. I think their disability is so misunderstood, when it really needs to be talked about more. It needs to be normalized. It needs to be represented in the media better. It's 1 in 4 people are disabled, and like that's just hardly ever talked about. And it's a minority that anyone will join at any time. And I think that people like see disability as like when they think of disability, they see it as one extreme scenario when it is a spectrum. And there's so many different types of people.
I do think people with disabilities looking, I'm not disabled, are othered. And I think that in terms of like pity might be the wrong word, but or might be the right word. Like from the non-disabled community, I think that it's accepted in that way, but that's often also doing harm because like no one wants to date somebody that they feel pity for, right? And so it's like a whole cycle. And so it's trying to normalize it and show that disabled people have full fun lives is really important because then people are going to want to date them. But I think as far as like getting some sympathy,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that the people maybe too much, like maybe there's too much of that and it's not enough of just like, you know, equal playing field.
Yeah, it's often the disability community we're treated like children, and that definitely plays into the dating world, is where people don't expect disabled people to date. They don't expect them to have casual relationships or to have sex, and so it can be really difficult for disabled people, and especially those who are visibly disabled, those who are wheelchair users. It's like people are looked upon as helpless.
Yeah. You said something earlier that I think is really true and that maybe people don't think about as much, is like you said, like being part of the disabled community is the one minority group where you can like enter at any time. And that's so true. And then Alexa, you use the word like the othering, like, like it's so true. And sometimes when people are maybe not as aware of some of the challenges are faced, it's like it's almost like a them versus us, not realizing like this could happen to everybody. Like chronic illnesses happen, accidents happen, so many other things. And so I like how you shining the light on that too.
Yeah, we want people to know, like we want people to not be afraid of disability. I think that like we hear about these accidents and these illnesses, and those can often be extremely traumatizing, but there's also life beyond disability. And I think that that's the disability community, especially on social media, is really good at showing that disabled people live full lives and we do things
Yeah.
just like everyone else.
Yes. And I think that representation is really important. And that's something that I think is unique about you guys' platform. Alexia, earlier you were mentioning about how other apps like that you were like trying to check out to see what they offer. It was hard to even figure out who was running them. And I think something that's very unique with Dateability is like it was really easy to go on the website and really find like those are the two people that started it. And like this is your story and this is your story. And that's I think that that's so much work for a presentation because then you're like, oh, okay, like there's an instant trust because I know a little bit about the story behind why what started, and I think that makes it very unique and different.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank
We're
you.
glad you shared that because it was definitely
Yeah.
intentional. It was definitely our intention to do that. And so we're glad that it's working.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from like the two of y'all how this transition from so then for you it's like being an attorney and having that role to stepping into like entrepreneurship and then for you Jacqueline this is your first like full position like how did you guys manage that like new hat as an entrepreneur and then also like starting your own business comes with like putting yourself out there and like all of a sudden you have to market the app and like your face is out there and it's like how was that transition for you guys?
I'll let you start.
Networking a lot is hard for me. I can be pretty introverted, and so I've had to learn to kind of get over that and just
Fake
network.
it till you make it.
Yeah, we were at an event last week, and it was like 2 hours of straight networking with people I'd never met. And by the end, I was like, I have to go. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, I need dinner. But as far as like, I really like making decisions. Generally, I'm the older sister. I can be quite bossy. I'm pretty decisive, and so making business decisions kind of came naturally to me. And I think our instincts are good, which is something that I didn't know. I didn't know if they'd be good or not, but they are. They are good. And so I think like it's helped that we have gotten a lot of press too. I think that kind of guides like where we go and what stories we lean into, and how we market ourselves. But it's been a wild ride. Owning your own business is like the most exhausting thing in the entire world, but I do believe it's also could be the most rewarding thing. And I believe that it will be very rewarding in 5 years from now, but it is definitely a lot of responsibility. And now that we've expanded our team, we have an in-house engineering team that really likes to help us make decisions. That's always really helpful because then it's not just us like having to figure out like, do we do this? Like, is this worth this money? Like, do we go like, are we making the right decision? We can have someone else weigh in. And so that's been really nice.
Yeah, there's no days off as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, and that's definitely been an adjustment for me. I don't know how I would do. I still like I've really surprised myself with how much I'm capable of, but I still don't think I would be able to work under someone or work for someone, just because like my hours and my capabilities change every day. Like some days I feel like I can work all day and not take a break, but then other days I can't do anything. And so it's been challenging, and it's really a test on my body, and to really figure out that balance of, all right, like this is the best thing for the business, or okay, I can prioritize my health this week and you know take a little bit of time off. But even then, there's no days off because we're the ones answering the customer service emails. We're going through the app and approving profile verification. And so it is exhausting. And yeah, but I am like I definitely was prepared because I was able to graduate college and get my master's degree. And so I had experience like that. But it's a weird world being an entrepreneur and also being a female entrepreneur and disabled. It's like we're constantly trying to fight for our place in the tech industry, and getting funding and trying to market it and working on such a low budget. It's very challenging.
Mhm.
I see. Where do you guys see the app going in like 5 years? Like, what are some goals that you have for how you'd like for it to grow?
We just expanded to the UK, and so I think in 5 years we'll be pretty global. That's what my hope and my guess is. And I want to become a household name. I want to be like the Bumble, the Tinder, the Hinge, the Grinder is probably a better comparison. I want it to be referenced on TV shows, which would imply that there's more disabled representation in Hollywood. I just want people to know about it. We have a lot of success stories, but I want our first wedding. I want our first Dateability baby. I want to, have more success stories. And yeah, I'm excited to watch it grow.
Yeah, I will echo all of that. I think just becoming the spot where, you don't have to Google and see if there's a disabled dating app out there, and you just know it, and a patient can come to you and you're like, yeah, you should try this. And so I think that just becoming really globalized and well known.
I love that. And when you mentioned like being like mentioned on like a TV show or something like that, I do see I'm also like an eternal optimistic, and I'm very hopeful in general. But I think that as I'm watching TV, I see more of that representation, and so I think those are amazing goals, and I can see things heading that way. And congratulations on like getting into the UK. That's awesome.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Has y'all's experience been working together? So going from like being sisters to being business partner.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, we're roommates. So really like we're 24/7 together. But it's been very easy and very smooth. We rarely disagree. If we disagree, it's over something really minimal and silly. We have our parents sometimes as tiebreakers, but really like our I feel like our instincts are very aligned, and we typically agree. And it's nice because we balance each other out with our skills. Alexa's really business minded, and she's also like is never satisfied. So she is the one who's like, okay, we have to do this, and this, and this. And I'm like more satisfied, and I'm like, okay, we can just like sit back and revel in the moment for a little bit. And Alexa's really creative, but she doesn't know how to execute, and so she'll give me the ideas, and then I can execute.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trust between us. So like if we do disagree, but one person feels strongly about their position, we will defer to that person, because if they really feel strongly, I think that we trust each other to like go for it. Luckily, also, we are at the beginning-ish stages, so this isn't a time to experiment, and it's not like we're running a multi-million-dollar company yet. And so I think that we can have a little bit of leeway. But we got all our fighting out as kids, so we don't really argue that much about anything anymore.
Do you guys have other siblings?
No. Thank goodness, because it would be really awkward. Or maybe they would be just as close and be involved.
No.
But it's just us.
Three's a crowd. No way.
Alexa, do you still work full time as an attorney?
I do. And so I'm tired. I drink a lot of caffeine. But I love my job, and it's very fulfilling. The missions of both Dateability and my job are really related and intertwined. Plus, as Jacqueline mentioned, it's been really hard to fight for funding. And so every investment we get, which is from an individual, it's not from financial institutions, so there's smaller check sizes, goes to the app and, marketing or a new features or paying the tech team. And so I have to keep working to pay the bills, and traveling comes out of our own pocket. And so, yeah, we're not there yet, but that is my other dream in the next 5 years, to have Dateability be self-sufficient so that I could work full time and pay myself a decent salary, and just focus on Dateability.
What are your best, like, let's say, top 2 time management advices for managing like basically two full-time jobs?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm like the master at multitasking, and so it's really hard.
incredible.
I recently learned that if Jacqueline's on the phone, like doing anything, texting, sending an email, and I say something to her, she will not hear me. She it's like everything else in the world shuts off, and that's not me at all. I can like be on 2 different meetings at once and like hear everything. So that was just God-given talent. I'm just so blessed. Calendars. Even if you have multiple calendars, putting everything on there, and triaging. So like you might not be able to get everything done in one day, but if you get the most important stuff done, you can leave the rest, or like Sunday night you can like leave like the minor stuff. I know working on a weekend is not fun, but sometimes when you own your own business, like you have to anyway. So I think figuring out what is most urgent and most important and getting those knocked off your list.
And I think
is
something
important.
you're really good at is those boundaries of like rest and free time and work time. And if you don't give yourself the time to rest and recover, you're not going to be efficient when you have to work, and you're not going to be happy when you have to work. And so you I mean, like we discussed, we watch a lot of TV, and that is a priority. Like every night we're watching TV, and that's just like built into our day. And
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, if you were working, you would be so burnt out.
Yeah, like Jacqueline will ask me, "Are you done working?" And I'll tell her never. Like I always have stuff I could do, but yes, I'm done for the day. Like I can sit down and watch TV because I need sleep. I do not want to be mentally burned out. I always think sometimes if you have balance each day, you can do more each day. But if you are working like 4 days straight, all into the night, by the time Friday rolls around, you're done. Like you can't do anything. So, yeah, that and caffeine.
And what about you, Jacqueline? What are your top two advice? So, earlier you were saying that with your chronic illness, some days are better than others, and there's days where it's just really hard to do anything. What are your advices for like pushing through those days, and like managing like the waving nature of chronic illness?
I think I've learned, and this would be my advice, is to be kind to yourself, and like be just because you've made like you feel like you have to take a break, or you say that you can't do something that day, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad employee. It's just like you have to be kind to your body and listen to it. And I still get in trouble with my body a lot. Like I should take my advice more often, because I'll often just try to push through, and then the next day it backfires. And so I think, yeah, listening to your body. And then I always like to make sure like I do something every day that is good for my physical health and my mental health. So like today I took my dog on a walk, and then I also took a bath, and those both things like make me equally happy, and they're both good for me. And so just prioritizing that.
I love that. Be kind to yourself and then do something for your physical and your mental health. I love it. Um, and I have a couple more questions. But earlier you mentioned like you have surprised yourself with how much you've been able to do. So for anybody that's listening that maybe they deal with a chronic illness or any level of disability, and they want to start something but they don't really believe that they can, what like words of wisdom would you share with them?
You just have to try it, because you don't know if you don't try. And that was something that I struggled with for years. I didn't want to let myself down by not being able to do anything. So I just like tried not to do anything. I like if I in my head, if I wasn't able to walk 5 miles, I didn't even want to try to walk one, because I felt like it was a letdown or a disappointment. And so and it was one day it was right before the pandemic started, and I was about to go to Chicago to have surgery on my heart. And I said, before I do all of this, like I just want to see if I can like walk around my neighborhood. And so I mapped out a path that I wanted to take, and I did it. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And then from that day on, I've just been doing it every day, and I will just explore my boundaries. And sometimes it doesn't go well. Sometimes it's really difficult, and it causes a lot of pain. But then I know I can scale back and try something else. And so I think that you can get really stuck in this mindset of like you can't do everything, or you can't do everything, so you shouldn't do nothing. You should do nothing. But just yeah, trying to explore and put yourself out there and be curious.
Yeah, I think I have three quotes that came to mind. One is Wayne Gretzky: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So I think that's something I remind myself of. Another one is that I always go by is that you'll never get anything if you don't ask for it. Like worst case scenario, the answer is no, right? But like you're never going to get a yes if you don't ask. And then the third it's about relationships, but it really, to me, this is how I live my life since I'm single, is that it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. And I think like it's better to have tried and failed than just never tried and always wondered what if.
Yeah.
So those
That
are
was
my 3
very,
advice.
very insightful.
I love all of this. I love all of this. And like you don't know if you don't ask. Like I try to live my life by this one. And
Oh, that's smart.
most so far, like usually when I ask it works out. So
Yes,
but
that's I've been saying
yeah.
that for years, and it's something I think I have to teach Jacqueline because
Yeah.
she'll be like, "No, we can't ask that," and I'm like, "Why? Like, why can't we ask? What are they going to do? They're not like you're not going to get in trouble for asking. You're just going to get a no. We can't do that. So why don't we just ask? You never know, or there might be a good middle ground." And I think it's really important to just go for it and believe in yourself.
I love this. I think it's very encouraging to me. So I feel like it'll also be very encouraging to the audience and just like inspiring people to start something.
Yeah.
Alexia, Jacqueline, is there any questions I haven't asked you guys about that you really want to mention? Like any parting words or last minute words of wisdom?
I no words of wisdom. I just got all my wisdom out for the day. But I think I want to, say that Dateability has a completely functional free version. We do have a subscription model that has added features, enhanced filtering, but there is, a free version that you can do everything on. We're on mobile app and web browser, dateabilityapp.com. We're currently going through an entire rebuild. So it'll be more accessible, more fun, more sophisticated, and hopefully the next couple months. What else? Anything else that I forget?
Yeah. We're just, we're really trying to build this strong community and this sense of community for the disability community. We don't feel like there's like this one overarching place where disabled people can come together and you celebrate our culture and each other and really feel like we can be free and free of judgment. And so I really hope that Dateability is that place, and I think it is becoming that place. And we see that with people who go on the app and tell us how confident it makes them feel and how hopeful it makes them feel, and that's all we could have ever dreamed of.
Yeah. And whether you're looking for a platonic friendship or a romantic relationship or something casual, you can find it on Dateability.
I love that. And I didn't even think about the platonic portion of it because I think that's also another gap that we see often is people looking for community of just people that get it and understand. And so I didn't think about like using a dating app, but for like a friendship purpose.
Yeah, a lot of people are really right now. They're all together, and we want to separate them one day, and we have plans to. But people are pretty understanding and just really looking for companionship, so it's not weird to be on there and only looking for friendship. I've only heard positive things about using that feature.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh, well, thank you guys for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I'm super excited about it. I'll make sure that I have all the information on the dateabilityapp.com. So, like the link to the web browser and then also the link to download directly the app too into the show notes. But thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.